In the middle of the night, a police cruiser is pulling over a vehicle for a routine checkup. Already a tense enough situation in a country like the United States, and then the car floors it, releasing an ungodly amount of power of over 800 horsepower that makes this car uncatchable. Not just to normal police units, but this car can even outrun a helicopter with over 200 miles an hour. Those specs are not surprising in a country like the United States, the country of the extremes, where everything is bigger, including the individualism, with the wealthy locking themselves up in gated communities and some parts of town not being entered by police anymore. After exploring in a previous video the getaway cars of organized crime in Europe, let's have a look how a flat hierarchy mixed with a lot of horsepower can be even more fatal. And with that, we're talking about how the Dodge Hellcat trims from the Charger and Challenger became the most notorious getaway cars in the United States. To understand how the Charger and Challenger got their reputation, a look back into history is required. For that, we're going to compare patrol cars and their highest trim civilian counterpart. From the early 90s until the 2010s, the Ford Crown Victoria was the predominant police car in the United States. While the 1998 Police Interceptor's 4.6-liter V8 produced 250 horsepower, while the civilian counterpart, the Mercury Marauder, produced 302 horsepower, which is a bit more but still close to the police car DNA, especially considering that muscle cars and sedans had solid rear axles and no independent rear suspension at the time. However, the police trim was about to be left behind, because in 2006 Dodge reintroduced the Charger and its police variant with independent rear suspension. Outclassing the Crown Victoria Interceptor, and the Dodge Charger police package came with the civilian RT engine, producing 340 horsepower and scratching on the 150 mile an hour mark thanks to its Mercedes-Benz gearbox. However, here's where the problems for the police start, because the Charger SRT8 that is only available to the public comes in with 425 horsepower, putting the police at an obvious disadvantage. 80 more horsepower was enough to give crooks an advantage, however, not enough to be uncatchable. That would change with Dodge continuously increasing the horsepower on the high-spec Charger and Challenger model, climaxing in the Challenger SRT Demon and the Charger SRT, fittingly named Jailbreak. With them both having over 800 horsepower, this leaves the average American police car 400 horsepower behind. However, the Charger and Challenger are not the only cars with this much power. Why are they still the main getaway cars in the United States? One of the reasons lays in the fact that the American car market is very unique. The United States is a completely car-centered society, and with everything being set up for cars, space and dimensions of a car and practicality of a car matter less and less. In addition to that, with protective policies around the automotive industry and vastly different customer preferences, you have pretty much an unbeatable price-to-utility ratio. That means there's plenty high-spec Chargers and Challengers to be stolen, that can be taken for joyrides or used for criminal activity. However, apart from criminality and how common the car is, there are more reasons why this car is the most common getaway car of the United States. Because in the US, car chases have become a cultural phenomenon, and the Charger and Challenger are at the center of this. When looking at the United States, police chases are a lot more common than in other countries, and that's due to a multitude of factors. First of all, in many states, the police involves themselves in chases even when it's about minor offenses. Also, the US criminal justice system has a punitive focus, focusing on punishment instead of rehabilitation, leading to a nothing-to-lose mentality for people who are caught doing a crime. People committing crime out of desperate situations is already a problem in the United States, due to the culture of the American dream. If you say that everyone can reach everything, everyone who doesn't is perceived as a moral failure. That situation is only worsened by barely any social system and a medical system that can lead to massive medical debt at basically every moment, which can lead to people getting into crime to get by or to just do anything due to a lack of perspective. Another factor that could explain why the United States has so many police chases is reality imitating fiction, with the United States being the dominating force when it comes to movie culture, often showing chase scenes as a means to an end to reach a goal by any means necessary. And this is where we are back to the Dodge Charger and Challenger, which are often portrayed as the outlaw car. From Dom's Charger and Fast and Furious to the Challenger in Vanishing Point. With this being something that also drives sales, Dodge themselves are leaning into this with their commercial material and also how they present themselves. Sometimes this is really direct with naming one of their models the Jailbreaker and trademarking the word outlaw, or sometimes it's more nuanced. However, this is kind of the chicken and the egg discussion. Because with the culture around the Dodge Charger and Challenger, they have become part of hood culture being mentioned in rap music, and with its affordability of huge power figures, it gained symbolic status. And with that, the Charger and Challenger as a getaway car is getting reflected back into pop culture with things like it being featured in GTA 5 as the car of Franklin. And with that, creating a cycle making the car popular with socioeconomically disadvantaged people. And with the United States having, compared to other Western countries, especially bad chances for social mobility, you get desperate situations. And all these factors create the perfect cocktail for random police stops resulting in police chases. However, one other thing that we have to talk about here are so-called sideshows. A sideshow is basically when cars drift in a circle or do burnouts on a closed-off intersection or parking lot with a group of people around it just going crazy. Due to the already mentioned factors, the Charger and Challenger are really popular here too, and of course this also leads to police chases. It's pretty safe to assume that these sideshows are happening because of a lack of accessibility of recreational activities. That this is the case is pretty obvious when you look at what kind of activities are coming together here. You have parts of the car community, you have people promoting their music, and you have people filming these events. And they put quite a lot of effort with drone shots and all the fancy stuff into this, so they're definitely compensating for the lack of another outlet here. Not to mention that there's obviously no other place where people find belonging. With the Dodge Charger and Challenger having a relatively long wheelbase and insane amounts of power, they are pretty easy to drift in a circle, which makes them very popular at the sideshows as well. As you can see, the reasons why the high-spec Dodge Charger and Challenger models are the most common getaway car of the United States are pretty widespread. From on the surface, the extreme power to price ratio, over the unique challenges of the American car market and the general life in the United States. Please hype the video and comment, and see you guys in the next one.